Ernesto Hoost, Mr. Perfect, born 11 July 1965. My son Jason was born on July 11th, not 1965 though. He had 121 total kickboxing matches, and he was a four-time K-1 Grand Prix champion. Here he is, pictured with Johnny's Terriot, who he would fight in 86 and 89. I was a big Johnny's fan, and what's interesting about this fight is I didn't get to see it live. I didn't even know it took place. I was in the Philippines, and a military guy ran into, loved the martial arts and loved kickboxing. He didn't practice at all. He just loved it, and he had a VHS tape of it, and I was able to see it. You can see there's no leg kicks here. He was fighting Johnny's, and Johnny's fought exclusively what was considered the American kickboxing rules, which was all kicks above the waist. And Johnny's was just a beast at his time, and just one of the best fighters. Here he is with Rob Kaman. He fought in 87 and 1990, and Kaman was another just considered a beast and one of the best fighters in the world. Ernesto started off early in his career just fighting some top-notch competition. And here he is with Rick Rufus. He lost in 92 but won in 94. And both fights were just terrific fights of technique and skill. You can see, Ernesto, how lanky he is at this time. Pretty skinny, pretty thin, pretty lanky, but could just flow with his punches and kicks when he was smaller like that. And, of course, this was when Rufus was probably at his prime at this point here. And so they had some good bouts here. This first one would go to Rick Rufus in a decision, of which Rufus really did dominate. But the second one was a domination by Ernesto. And Ernesto would end up knocking Rufus out with a high roundhouse kick you're going to just see here in just a moment. And just poor Rufus just hits the canvas, stumbles to the canvas, and can't get back up. But two amazing fights. And that's what made Ernesto so special. I'm going to be candid. I think this is like the golden era of international rules kickboxing and or fighters in the kickboxing world, because it really is the pinnacle of the sport. Before that, you had highlights of people like Benny Urquidez and Bill Wallace, Joe Louis and Jeff Smith and Gordon Franks and some others. But not everybody under them was all that great. There were some good ones, Steve Shepard, Howard Jackson, but you really get a stat card during this time period on the international circuit. And it's just amazing. Here he is with Peter Arts fighting. And here he's with Jerome Labanner. I've also heard pronounced Jerome Labanner. They had 5 fights from 96 to 2002. And went back and forth. Here he is one of my favorites, Andy Hugh. They fought 4 times, and Andy's just one of my favorites of all time, both as a full contact karate fighter and as a kickboxer, because he could just throw so many diverse techniques, though he was quite undersized fighting in the heavyweight division, because he averaged about 202, 210 pounds, and he was not that big. And most of that weight was put on for he could compete in the K1s. You can see Ernesto now is getting a little bit bigger and thicker, and just amazing all the competition he faced. Here he is with Maurice Smith. Maurice Smith was one of the top heavyweights in the United States at the time, and they would fight twice, both of them going to Ernesto Hoost. And Ernesto liked to fight off the edges, pick his shots, and then if he had you wounded or he had you tired, he would press forward to go get you. He would have a couple bouts with Bob Sapp. He'd finally take him in a third bout. That was more of an all-around MMA bout, I guess. But what's interesting is while Bob Sapp beat him, and Bob Sapp would lose to lesser competition, just sometimes styles makes fights, Bob Sapp couldn't continue in the Grand Prix tournament, so because Ernesto Hoost broke his ribs in the fight, so he might have lost it in the ring, but outside the ring, he was able to continue fighting and had to take and replace him for the match because Bob Sapp couldn't meet the next match in that tournament. Here's a Peter Arts. I mean, they finally, their first fight in 1988, and think about this, their last fight in 2014 in Glory. And I mean, that's a lot of wars. They fought several times. But what's really neat is that you can find pictures of these people together shaking hands and laughing, him and Jerome Robinaire, him and Peter Arts, as well as many others. I have met a guy who claimed he had met Ernesto Hoost and just said he's a super gentleman, super nice guy. There he is with Mirko Cro Cop. Wow, look at the people he has competed against. So many of the top names of the K-1 kickboxing world. It's just quite amazing, the level of competition. Well, now he's out making appearances, conducting seminars with younger fighters and other martial artists, helping them build conditioning and attending events. And it's just great to see that he's still active, training, teaching, passing on his great knowledge and experience to others. So thank you so much, Ernesto Hoost, Mr. Perfect, for all the years of competition you've provided for us. Us.